Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a story about humiliation, pride, and a silent kind of revenge that doesn't need shouting or fighting, just quiet power. You probably won't survive this story. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to watch the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's comfortably embark on tonight's journey. It starts on a gray Thursday morning. I'm standing at the corner of Maple and 3rd, staring at the small glass door of the same bank I've used for 30 years. The paint around the door handle is chipped, and there's a new poster that says, "Modern Banking for Modern People." The words sting a little. I suppose I'm not modern anymore. I clutch my old leather wallet and step inside. The fluorescent lights hum above, washing everything in a sterile white glare. The air smells faintly of printer ink and coffee gone cold. I see a row of young employees behind their sleek monitors, all of them moving fast, eyes glued to screens, fingers clicking. No one looks up. I walk slowly to the counter, adjusting my hat, and say, "Good morning." The teller doesn't look up right away. She's maybe 25, her nails painted silver, her hair perfectly straight. "Yes," she says, with that forced politeness that means, "You're interrupting me." I tell her I'd like to withdraw some savings. Nothing complicated, just a bit of cash for home repairs. She sighs, clicks something on her computer, and tells me to wait for the manager's approval because it's a higher amount. I nod and step aside, standing there like an old statue, while people half my age walk past with shiny phones and confident strides. People still debate whether society truly respects the elderly or just pretends to. Maybe it depends on the day or the size of your bank account. I used to think kindness was free, but today it feels like a luxury item. As I wait, I notice the new manager coming out of his glass office, a tall man in his 40s, sharp suit, perfect smile. He doesn't shake my hand. Instead, he gestures toward his desk and says, "Let's make this quick, sir. We've got quite a queue today." His voice carries that faint tone of superiority you can't quite prove, but you can feel it crawl under your skin. I sit down carefully, my knees popping. He glances at my old shoes, at the frayed cuff of my sleeve. "So he says you want to withdraw how much I tell him the number," and his eyebrow twitches. He leans back in his chair and chuckles softly. "That's a lot of cash to carry around, sir. Maybe you should stick to smaller withdrawals, keep things simple at your age." I smile faintly. "Simple," I repeat. "Yes, you know." "For safety reasons," he says, tapping his pen on the desk. His tone is patronizing, almost playful, the kind of tone people use with children or with those they assume have no power left. Behind him, a young intern snickers. I catch her reflection in the glass wall. They think I can't hear. I used to laugh things like that off, but today it stings. Maybe it's the way he keeps calling me sir like it's a joke, or the way his hand lingers too long on my papers like I'm a relic from another time. There's a funny thing about respect. It doesn't come from titles or suits. It's invisible until it's gone. I glance at the certificates framed behind his desk, employee of the Year Excellence in Customer Relations. I almost laugh. Maybe he earned them by talking down to people like me. He finally says, "All right, Mr. Hayes, please take a seat in the lobby. We'll process this." I nod, rise slowly, and make my way back to the waiting area. My legs ache, but not as much as my pride. As I sit, I notice something familiar, the same brown leather chairs that were here 10 years ago, the same coffee machine humming in the corner, the same artificial plant that's never grown or wilted. Only the faces have changed. A memory flickers me, standing here decades ago with my wife beside me. She used to bring cookies for the staff. They loved her. The manager then was a kind man who knew every client's name. He'd say, "Mr. Hayes, your loyalty means everything. Times have changed. Now loyalty means nothing unless it comes with numbers." A man my age once told me that dignity doesn't die. It just waits for the right moment to speak. Sitting there, I don't say a word. I just wait. The young manager doesn't know it yet, but today will be the day my silence teaches him what no seminar ever could. Outside, the sky clears a little. The light through the glass makes dust sparkle like tiny stars. I take a deep breath, pull my wallet closer, and prepare for whatever insult or delay might come next. I've learned to endure small humiliations, but even patience has a breaking point. The next 15 minutes feel like an hour. I can hear the clicking of keyboards, the faint hum of the air conditioner, and the manager's laughter from across the room. He's talking loudly, probably to impress the younger staff. Every few sentences he glances toward me, smirking, as if I can't tell he's the topic of the joke. "Old people withdrawing large sums," he says to one of them, "always worried the world's ending tomorrow." They laugh. The sound burns a little, but I don't flinch. I've seen worse than mockery wars, recessions, funerals. This is just noise. Still, humiliation has a way of creeping under your skin. It doesn't scream. It whispers, reminding you that time has taken something from you. Strength, pride, maybe both. I stare at the marble floor, at the faint reflection of a man I barely recognize. The truth is, retirement has been lonelier than I expected. My children live in different states. My wife's been gone for 6 years, and while I have more money than I could ever spend, it means very little when you have no one to spend it on. That's the cruel irony of aging people think you have nothing left to give, when really you've just stopped trying to prove yourself. The manager finally waves me over again. I walk slowly to his desk, feeling all the eyes on me. He slides a document across the glass surface. "Sign here," he says flatly, "and we'll get your cash. Though if you'd like, we could set you up with one of our retirement financial advisors." He says that last part like he's offering me charity. I tell him politely that I don't need one. He laughs under his breath. "Of course," he says, "you're the expert." His tone is dripping with sarcasm. People still debate whether arrogance comes from youth or insecurity. Maybe it's both. I think about how often people mistake confidence for cruelty. When did politeness become optional? When did age stop deserving respect? As he processes my withdrawal, he starts asking personal questions. He doesn't need to. "So, what do you do these days? You must have been a teacher, maybe." I tell him I used to work in logistics. "Ah," he says, uninterested, "so you handled deliveries." His eyes flick up briefly, scanning my old jacket, my watch, my posture. He assumes I'm ordinary. That's the thing about assumptions. They're free, and people spend them carelessly. Behind him, the intern from earlier whispers something, and they both chuckle again. I hear one of them say, "He probably just keeps his cash under the mattress." I can't help but smile, not from amusement, but from pity. They think they're laughing at me, but in truth, they're mocking their own ignorance. There's an old saying, "Respect costs nothing but buys everything." Somewhere along the way, people forgot that. I remember when bankers wore sincerity like armor. Now they wear arrogance like perfume. The manager finally hands me a receipt and says, "We'll have your cash ready shortly. Please wait over there." I nod again. My silence unnerves him. I can see it in the twitch of his jaw. He expects me to react, to be defensive, to get angry. But anger would mean giving him power. I've spent a lifetime learning when to speak and when silence does the speaking for me. As I sit back in the lobby, I notice a small boy holding his mother's hand, standing in line. He's staring at me curiously. I smile at him and he waves shyly before his mother pulls him closer. It reminds me of my grandson who still calls me every Sunday just to tell me about his soccer games. That small thought brings warmth back into my chest. I overhear two tellers talking about bonuses, about promotions. One of them says, "It's all about numbers now. Clients with big accounts get everything." The other laughs. "Yeah, unless they're old and don't look the part." They don't realize how prophetic those words are. I fold my hands and wait, patient as ever. Then something small but telling happens. A different teller, a young man, maybe new here, comes out from the back with a hesitant expression. He approaches the manager and whispers something. I see the manager's smile fade. His posture stiffens. He looks at me, then at the computer screen in front of him. I can't hear what's said, but I can tell something's wrong or right, depending on your point of view. He leans forward, peers at the monitor, and suddenly his tone drops an octave. He says something sharp to the intern who rushes off to another terminal. A few seconds later, I hear a soft gasp from one of the tellers. I know that sound. It's the sound of realization, the kind that changes how people look at you in an instant. People still debate whether power reveals character or corrupts it. But I've learned something else. It also exposes hypocrisy. One minute you're invisible, the next you're the center of the universe, and all it takes is a number on a screen. The manager's voice now trembles slightly. "Mr. Hayes," he calls out, forcing a smile, "would you mind stepping into my office again?" I nod, pretending not to notice his sudden nervousness. Inside, I feel the smallest flicker of satisfaction. Not anger, not revenge, just quiet justice, the kind that life delivers when you stop demanding it. As I follow him into his glass-walled office again, the entire bank seems to shift. Conversations quiet down. The rhythm of keyboard clicks slows. I can feel their curiosity brushing against my back like a draft. The manager forces a polite grin, but his eyes betray him uneasy calculating. He gestures toward the same seat I sat in before, though now his hand trembles slightly. "Please have a seat, Mr. Hayes," he says, and his voice cracks on the last syllable. I do, as he asks, resting my hands on the table. He's sweating now. Not much, just a thin sheen glistening near his temple. It seems there's been some kind of misunderstanding. He begins carefully choosing each word like he's defusing a bomb. I let him speak. "Your account? Well, our system just flagged it for review. I wasn't aware you had such an extensive portfolio with us." His throat tightens as he says it. I can tell he's just seen the total balance enough zeros to make his eyes water. He clears his throat, trying to recover composure. "We, deeply value your trust in our institution. And of course, I'd like to personally ensure your experience here meets the highest standards." I almost smile. 10 minutes ago, I was a nuisance. Now I'm valued. I wonder how many times he's performed this same act with others, shifting tone the moment money enters the picture. People still debate whether wealth changes who we are or just reveals who others truly are around us. I think it's the latter. Money doesn't corrupt character. It exposes it. The manager continues rambling now, overly friendly. "Would you like some coffee, Mr. Hayes? Or perhaps tea? We can have someone bring you water if you'd prefer." I shake my head slowly. "No, thank you," I say, keeping my voice calm, even gentle. It unnerves him more than anger would. He leans forward, lowering his voice. "If I may ask, were you a business owner, sir?" I nod once. "Retired," I reply. "From what field?" "If I might ask logistics," I answer. He tilts his head. Shipping and deliveries." You could say that I tell him, letting the silence stretch. He doesn't need to know I built one of the largest independent transport firms in the state, that I sold it quietly before retirement. that the proceeds became the very account he now worships. He keeps talking, trying to recover his balance, but the cracks in his arrogance widen with every word. You know, Mr. Hayes, we take pride in serving all our clients equally. It's our mission, you see. I raise an eyebrow. Equally, I repeat softly. His eyes dart away. The young intern knocks on the glass and slips in nervously. Sir, the regional director is on line 2, she says, avoiding my gaze. The manager waves her off, but I catch the panic flickering across his face. The regional director doesn't call for routine transactions. I realize the system must have flagged my account for VIP priority, the kind reserved for legacy investors or institutional clients. I've had that status for years, but never used it. Now, apparently, it's causing a commotion. He forces another laugh, but it sounds strangled. Technology, huh? Always full of surprises. I simply nod my silence, pressing heavier with every second. He excuses himself for a moment and picks up the phone. Through the glass, I can see his shoulders stiffen as he listens. He glances toward me several times, nodding rapidly, murmuring yes, of course, absolutely. When he hangs up, he looks paler than before. Mr. Hayes, he says, voice trembling slightly. It seems the bank's upper management would like to personally extend their gratitude for your continued loyalty. They've asked me to ensure you receive our platinum-level service immediately. Platinum, I echo. Yes, he says. Quickly, it includes a dedicated account officer, 24-hour access exclusive financial products. His voice trails off, as if he's reading from a brochure he never expected to use on someone like me. People still debate whether respect earned through fear or guilt is real respect at all. Maybe it's not, but it's certainly revealing. He gestures for me to wait again and steps outside to bark whispered orders at his staff. Within minutes, I can hear the shift in their tone. The same teller who ignored me before now rushes to prepare complimentary refreshments. The intern places a small vase with fresh flowers on the desk. Even the security guard offers me a polite nod. It's almost theatrical, the way they all scramble to rewrite their behavior. As they do, my mind drifts. I think of my late wife, Margaret. She used to tell me the loudest people have the smallest hearts. Stay quiet, they'll show you who they are. She was right. Every time. I can almost hear her laugh in my head, soft, knowing patient. She would have enjoyed this moment, not for the revenge, but for the lesson. The manager returns, trying his best to appear composed. Mr. Hayes, he says we're expediting your transaction. It should only take a few minutes. In the meantime, please allow me to personally apologize for any inconvenience earlier. His words sound rehearsed, like he's reading off an invisible script. I tilt my head. Inconvenience, I ask, feigning confusion. His face reddens. Well, yes, I may have been perhaps too direct earlier. I assure you it wasn't intentional. I let a small smile cross my lips. It never is, I say quietly. He looks down. There's a long silence. I can sense him searching for the right words, but there aren't any. You can't polish genuine shame with corporate apologies. It just sits there, heavy and awkward. People still debate whether dignity can be taken away or only surrendered. I've always believed it's the latter. Today I realize is that when you stay calm in humiliation, you make the other person face their own ugliness. The teller returns with a folder. Here's your withdrawal, sir, she says, her voice trembling slightly. I nod and take it, thanking her sincerely. She looks surprised by my tone, perhaps expecting bitterness. But bitterness is exhausting. Calmness is far more powerful. The manager stands awkwardly, trying to maintain his authority. If there's anything else we can do, please, don't hesitate to reach out to me personally, he says, handing me a business card. I take it and glance at the name embossed in gold. Then slowly I tear it neatly in half. The sound of paper ripping is louder than I expect. He flinches. I don't say a word. I simply place the halves on his desk and stand. I walk toward the door, every step echoing through the now silent lobby. No one dares to speak. The young intern bows her head as I pass. The teller avoids eye contact. The security guard opens the door for me like I'm royalty. Outside, the cold air hits my face, and I finally breathe. For the first time that morning, I feel taller, not because of the money, but because I didn't let their behavior define me. As I cross the street, I glance back through the glass facade. Inside, the manager is pacing, phone pressed to his ear, his perfect posture collapsing inch by inch. He looks smaller now, human almost. And somewhere deep inside, I can't help but think of all the others like me, quiet gray-haired, dismissed, carrying stories that no one bothers to ask about. People still debate whether age equals wisdom. Maybe it doesn't, but it certainly gives you the patience to watch the proud fall by their own hand. I smile faintly and keep walking, knowing the day isn't over yet, and neither is their lesson. By the time I reach the end of the block, the wind has picked up. The chill carries the faint sound of city traffic, a mix of horns and distant laughter, all blurred together like static. I pause by a bakery window and watch the reflection of the bank behind me. I can still see the manager's silhouette pacing like a trapped animal. It's strange, just half an hour ago, that man saw me as nothing more than a nuisance, a tired old man wasting his precious time. Now, he's probably rehearsing ways to fix the mess his arrogance created. People still debate whether instant regret ever truly changes someone, or if it just teaches them how to fake humility better next time. I guess we'll find out. I decide to sit on the bench outside the bakery, pull out my small notebook, and jot down the bank's name at the top of the page. Beneath it, I write 3 words. Move the funds. It's not out of spite, it's about principle. I've lived long enough to know that silence doesn't mean weakness, and forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes the most powerful lesson you can give someone is to let the consequence speak for you. After finishing my coffee, I return home. The house feels larger than usual, quieter too. There's a framed photo of Margaret by the window, sunlight kissing the glass. She's smiling in that way that always made me believe kindness could change the world. I set my hat on the table and whisper, "You'd have enjoyed that scene today." For a moment it feels like she's listening. I sit down and log into my online account. The numbers flash across the screen, almost absurd in their length. I've never bragged about it, never even told my children how much there really is. Money was never the point. It was a tool for safety, not status. But today it became something else. A mirror. It showed me how shallow people can be when faced with what they desire. The cursor blinks at the bottom of the page. Would you like to initiate a transfer? I click yes. My decision is firm. Within minutes, I've arranged an appointment with a rival bank across town, an institution known for valuing loyalty over appearance. The irony is they've been trying to get my business for years. I just never had a reason to move until now. People still debate whether moral lessons are outdated in the modern world. But every generation rediscovers them the hard way. You can build technology, automate service. Replace faces with screens, but you can't automate decency. That night, I make myself a simple dinner, grilled salmon, a small salad, a glass of red wine. The television hums quietly in the background, showing some news about markets, rising inflation, interest rates, things I used to care about. Now all I can think of is the look on that manager's face when he realized who I was. Fear, confusion, and that subtle collapse of ego. It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. I sleep well that night. When morning comes, I wake before sunrise, as I always do. Old habits die hard. I dress neatly, gray slacks, blue. Shirt, the same. Leather jacket Margaret bought me on our 40th anniversary. I call for a cab and head to the rival bank. The driver, a young man, makes small talk about the weather. When I mention I'm moving my accounts, he laughs and says, "Good for you, sir. These banks forget who keeps them alive." It's a small sentence, but it sticks with me. The rival bank feels different from the moment I walk in. Warm lighting. A faint scent of coffee. A young woman at the reception desk greets me with a genuine smile. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes. We've been expecting you." She already knows my name. That small detail says everything. She guides me to an office where the branch director, an older gentleman about my age, stands to shake my hand. "It's an honor to finally meet you," he says, with sincerity that doesn't feel rehearsed. We sit down and the conversation flows easily. He doesn't ask about my wealth first. He asks about my family, my late wife, my background. It's disarming in the best way. People still debate whether good manners have any place in business anymore. Maybe they do when they come from people who mean it. We discuss the transfer. The paperwork is quick, efficient. He doesn't rush me or drown me in jargon. He simply says, "We'll take good care of you." I believe him. As he speaks, I can't help but notice the difference in tone compared to the day before. Respect given freely feels lighter, more natural. It doesn't demand submission. It invites trust. After signing the final documents, he extends his hand again. "Thank you for choosing us, Mr. Hayes." I nod. "Thank you for remembering what professionalism sounds like." He chuckles softly, understanding the weight behind my words. As I leave the new bank, my phone buzzes. It's an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answer. The voice on the other end is hesitant but familiar. "Mr. Hayes, this is Daniel Brooks from First City Bank." Yes, the manager." His voice now lacks the confidence it once carried. He sounds smaller somehow. "Mr. Brooks," I say evenly, "how can I help you?" He hesitates. "I just wanted to personally apologize again for yesterday's situation. We pride ourselves on treating our clients with respect, and I fear we fell short of that standard." I stay silent for a moment. The pause stretches until it becomes uncomfortable. Then I say, "You didn't fall short, Mr. Brooks. You fell through it." He doesn't respond right away. Finally, he mutters, "I understand. Please know we deeply value your continued relationship with us." I smile, though he can't see it. "You used to," I say softly. "Not anymore." And with that, I end the call. There's something satisfying about finality, not loud, not cruel, just complete. The transfer will be finalized within days. By then, his superiors will likely call him in for an unpleasant meeting. Maybe he'll learn something from it. Maybe not. Either way, it's no longer my concern. I walk home under a pale morning sun. The air smells of fresh rain, and the city feels quieter than usual. I stop by a small park, sit on a bench, and watch pigeons fight over crumbs. A boy throws a piece of bread too far, and they all rush toward it, tiny, chaotic, greedy. I laugh to myself. People aren't so different when you think about it. We all chase the same things. We just wear better shoes. As I sit there, a sense of peace settles over me. Not triumph, not pride, just calm. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It whispers. It doesn't need witnesses or applause. It just needs to happen quietly so the world can realign itself by one small degree. People still debate whether wealth isolates or empowers. I think it does both. It isolates you from those who only see your worth in numbers, but empowers you to walk away without a word. When I finally rise from the bench, I feel lighter. I've done what I needed to do. Tomorrow will take care of itself. The next morning, I wake to the sound of rain tapping against the kitchen window. It's steady, soft, almost rhythmic, like an old clock. I've always liked rainy mornings. They make the world feel smaller, quieter. I sit at the table with my cup of black coffee watching tiny rivers form on the glass, each drop racing the next to the bottom. There's something humbling about watching nature move without hurry. Maybe that's why I prefer silence. It reminds me that life doesn't need applause to be meaningful. Halfway through my second cup, my phone buzzes again. Unknown number. I sigh, but answer anyway. Mr. Hayes. The voice is younger this time, female, polite, professional. This is Caroline from First City Bank's regional office. I'm calling regarding your accounts. Her tone is careful, deliberate, the way someone speaks when they've been told to handle a delicate situation. Yes, I say evenly. I'm aware. I just wanted to confirm a few details. We received notification of a full transfer request to Harborview Financial. Is that correct? That's correct, I say, stirring my coffee. She hesitates before speaking again. Mr. Hayes, please allow me to personally apologize on behalf of our institution for any inconvenience or disrespect you may have experienced. We truly value your relationship with us and would appreciate the opportunity to make things right. People still debate whether corporate apologies mean anything anymore. Sometimes they do if they come from the heart. But more often they come from panic, the kind that follows when numbers start to leave the ledger. I appreciate the call, Caroline, I reply, but this isn't about making things right. It's about realizing what went wrong. Your manager didn't see a customer yesterday. He saw a stereotype, and I don't intend to do business with people who see through me instead of seeing me. There's a long pause. I understand, Mr. Hayes, she says softly. For what it's worth, I truly am sorry. I believe you, I say, and I mean it. Then I hang up. I sit there for a moment listening to the rain. I think about how strange it is the way respect often depends on context. At home, I'm just another old man trying to keep busy. At the bank, I'm a number on a screen that decides who bows and who speaks. But in the quiet of this kitchen, I'm simply myself. And that's the one person no institution can ever control. After breakfast, I pull out a small wooden box from the drawer. Inside are the few keepsakes I've saved over the years, Margaret's wedding ring, an old photograph of us by the ocean, and a letter she wrote before she passed. I unfold it gently, the paper soft and worn. Her handwriting is elegant but faint. Promise me you'll keep being kind, it says, even when the world forgets what kindness looks like. I smile. I've tried my best, I think. Even yesterday, in the face of mockery, I didn't raise my voice. Sometimes kindness isn't about being soft, it's about holding steady when others lose their balance. Later that day, I decide to take a walk. The rain has slowed to a drizzle, and the streets shine like silver. Passing by the town square, I see a few familiar faces. Neighbors, shopkeepers, people who nod politely, but rarely stop to talk. That's another truth of aging. The older you get, the more invisible you become. People see your outline, not your story. I pass the bank again on my way home. From across the street, I can see the glass doors, the reflection of umbrellas moving in and out. For a brief moment, I lock eyes with the manager through the window. He's standing near the counter, looking out. When he recognizes me, he straightens immediately. His face tightens, and he lifts a hand in a hesitant half-wave, as if unsure whether to acknowledge me or hide. I don't wave back. I simply nod once and keep walking. People still debate whether forgiveness is strength or surrender. I think it's neither. Forgiveness is understanding without expectation. I don't expect him to change, but I understand why he must face himself now. By afternoon, I receive a notification confirming the successful transfer of funds. Every penny, every cent has been moved to the new bank. I print the confirmation and tuck it neatly into a folder labeled Accounts, Closed. The act feels symbolic, like closing the final page of a long, unnecessary chapter. That evening, my daughter calls from Chicago. "Dad, I saw your name on a local business blog," she says, her tone half curious, half amused. "Something about a retired investor making waves in the banking sector." I chuckle softly. News travels fast. "What happened?" she asks. "Nothing much," I say. "Just a reminder to some folks that respect isn't optional." She laughs, but then her voice softens. "Mom would have been proud." I glance at Margaret's photo again. "I hope so," I whisper. After the call, I step outside onto the porch. The rain has stopped completely, leaving the air fresh and heavy with the scent of wet earth. A neighbor's dog barks in the distance. Somewhere a wind chime sings faintly. I sit in my old rocking chair and close my eyes. You learn a lot sitting still. About people, about yourself, about how small acts, both cruel and kind, ripple farther than anyone expects. The bank manager probably thinks he lost a client. He doesn't realize he lost a lesson he'll never forget. People still debate whether money can buy respect. But what they forget is that disrespect can bankrupt you faster than any financial loss. As twilight fades into night, I think about writing a letter not to complain, not to boast, but to thank the people who reminded me why character matters more than balance sheets. I might even address it to Mr. Brooks himself. Something simple. "Thank you for reminding me how rare humility has become." Maybe I won't send it. Maybe I'll just keep it like Margaret's letter, a quiet testament that even when the world grows cold, you can still choose warmth. The streetlights flicker on one by one, bathing the neighborhood in a soft amber glow. The rain-soaked leaves shimmer under the light, and for a moment, everything feels still. I take a deep breath, lean back in my chair, and smile to myself. It's funny how a single day can strip away layers of illusion, how people treat you, how they see you, and how you choose to see them in return. Yesterday, I was invisible. Today, I walked out of a storm taller than I walked in. Not because I proved them wrong, but because I never let them change who I am. The following week begins quietly, as if life itself is exhaling after a long breath. The storm has passed, and with it the noise of pride and humiliation. I settle into my usual routine: breakfast at 7, a short walk to the park, and then coffee at the corner cafe, where the barista knows my order by heart. There's comfort in the rhythm of ordinary days, the kind of peace you can only appreciate once you've had enough chaos. But peace doesn't mean the story is over. Sometimes it just means the lesson is ready to bloom. On Tuesday morning, I receive a letter in the mail. The envelope bears the First City Bank logo in elegant navy print. I almost toss it aside, thinking it's another empty apology or promotional offer. But something about the weight of the paper makes me pause. I tear it open and unfold the letter. It's handwritten, an unexpected detail, and it begins with the words, "Dear Mr. Hayes, I owe you more than an apology." The handwriting is neat, but trembling. It's from Daniel Brooks. He writes that he's spent the past week reflecting on what happened, on his words, his tone, his arrogance. He admits he's been struggling to sleep, replaying the moment he realized how wrong he'd been. He confesses that he joined the banking world, young, eager to climb the corporate ladder, and somewhere along the way, he started seeing clients as numbers instead of people. "You made me see myself," he writes, "and I didn't like what I saw." For a moment, I just sit there, letting the words sink in. There's something raw about it, something that doesn't feel rehearsed or corporate. People still debate whether guilt can lead to growth or if it's just temporary shame. Maybe that depends on whether the lesson hits deep enough. I fold the letter carefully and set it on the table beside Margaret's picture. "Would you look at that?" I murmur. "An honest apology in 2025. I thought they went extinct." That night, I can't stop thinking about Daniel's letter. Part of me feels vindicated, but another part feels empathy. I remember being young, once hungry, proud, convinced that success required looking down on others. I wasn't cruel, but I was blind in my own way. I thought working hard was enough, that good intentions covered up clumsy mistakes. But respect isn't something you declare. It's something you prove one small moment at a time. People still debate whether older generations judge too harshly or younger ones too lightly. I think both forget that we're all just trying to find our footing between pride and decency. A few days later, I walk into Harborview Financial to sign the final documents confirming the account transfer. The process is seamless. Polite, professional everything. First City Bank wasn't. The young advisor, a soft-spoken man named Leo, shakes my hand firmly. "It's an honor to have you with us, Mr. Hayes," he says sincerely. "We've already set up your new portfolio access. Would you like us to assign a personal consultant?" I chuckle. "I think I've had enough managers for a while," I say. He laughs lightly, not offended, and offers me coffee instead. Small gestures like that mean more than polished words. As I leave the bank, I pass a newsstand. The local business paper's headline catches my eye. First City Bank faces internal review over client relations. My eyebrows lift. I pick up the paper and skim the article. It mentions complaints about poor customer treatment and a pending audit. It doesn't name names, but I can imagine Daniel sweating under fluorescent lights in some upper-floor meeting room, answering uncomfortable questions from executives who suddenly discovered morality when profits are at stake. For a moment, I feel a twinge of pity, not because he's in trouble, but because I know what regret feels like. It's heavy, but it can also rebuild you if you carry it long enough without trying to drop it. That afternoon, I decide to write back. Nothing long, just a note. "Dear Mr. Brooks, I appreciate your letter and the courage it took to write it. I don't hold grudges. We all stumble. It's how we stand up that defines us. If you truly mean what you wrote, then treat every person who walks into your office as if they might own the building, because one day one of them will. Take care of your conscience. It's the only balance sheet that really matters. Sincerely, Richard Hayes." I seal the envelope and mail it without a return address. Some messages don't need a reply. They just need to be heard. That evening, I take another walk. The sunset is deep orange, the kind that stains the clouds like spilled paint. Children laugh in the distance, chasing a soccer ball across the damp grass. Watching them, I feel something loosen inside me, like forgiveness isn't a decision but a gradual exhale. Maybe that's the gift of age. You stop needing to win every battle because you understand which ones were never worth fighting. People still debate whether kindness makes you weaker in a cruel world. I think it makes you quieter, and quiet people are the hardest to shake. As I return home, I see a small package by my door. It's from Harborview Bank, a welcome gift, they said. Inside is a simple fountain pen engraved with my initials and a note that reads, "For writing your next chapter." I laugh softly, thinking how different that feels from the cold indifference I faced just a week ago. It's amazing how fast the world changes when you stop letting it trample your dignity. Before bed, I sit at my desk and pull out an old leather-bound journal. It's mostly empty, just a few scattered notes about investments, phone numbers, small reflections. Tonight, I write something new. Respect isn't a currency. It's a mirror. Those who can't see their reflection in it don't deserve your time. I close the journal. Blow out the candle on the desk and sit in the dark for a while, listening to the house settle into silence. Somewhere outside, an owl hoots. The air smells faintly of rain and pine. It's peaceful in a way that makes me feel both small and infinite. Tomorrow I'll donate part of my savings to a community scholarship fund, something Margaret always wanted to do but never got around to. Maybe that's the best revenge, turning disrespect into generosity. People still debate whether justice ever truly feels complete. I think it does when it stops being about proving something to others and starts being about honoring yourself. I whisper almost to the night, "You were right, Margaret. Stay kind, especially when they don't deserve it." Then I turn off the light. The rain starts again, soft and steady, washing away the last trace of bitterness left in me. The next morning brings sunlight so sharp it paints golden stripes across my kitchen floor. I open the curtains, and for the first time in days, the house feels alive again. The rain has washed everything clean, the street, the leaves, maybe even me. I make coffee, crack 2 eggs into a pan, and hum quietly as they sizzle. There's peace in the small sounds of a solitary morning, the kind that doesn't need conversation to feel full. When you live long enough, silence becomes an old friend, never judging, never demanding, just there when you need to listen to your own thoughts. The phone rings just as I'm sitting down to eat. It's a local number I don't recognize. "Mr. Hayes," a calm voice says when I answer. "This is Michael Torres, senior editor at the Herald. I was hoping to speak with you about a recent event involving First City Bank." I sigh softly. "I didn't expect it to turn into news," I say. He chuckles. "It's not just news, sir. It's a story that's resonated with people. Someone from the bank mentioned an elderly gentleman who quietly withdrew a large account after being mistreated. Word spread internally, then on social media. You've become a bit of a symbol I repeat. For what exactly? For dignity, he says. For standing your ground without shouting. We'd love to interview you, not to sensationalize, but to highlight how respect should never depend on appearances. People still debate whether privacy is worth keeping in an age obsessed with sharing. I've never liked attention. Fame is just noise, with better lighting. But maybe this time the noise could teach someone something. "All right," I say after a moment, but only if it's about the lesson, not the money. 2 days later, he comes to my home. A young man in his 30s, dressed modestly, polite enough to take off his shoes without being asked. He sets up a small recorder on the table and asks gentle questions about what happened, about how it felt, about why I didn't lash out. I answer simply. I wasn't angry, I tell him, just disappointed. You see, respect isn't something you owe to wealth, it's something you owe to humanity. I don't care about special treatment. I just don't want to be treated as less than human because of gray hair and wrinkles. He nods, jotting notes. What would you say to people who think respect is earned, not given? I think for a moment, then reply, you're right, it is earned. But it's earned by you, not by the other person. You earn respect by showing it first. The interview lasts less than an hour. When he leaves, he thanks me sincerely, and I can tell he means it. A week later, the article goes live. The quiet power of respect, how one man changed a bank's culture. It spreads faster than I expect. Strangers send letters. Some share stories of being dismissed at stores, hospitals, offices, how small indignities pile up until someone finally says enough. One man writes, "You reminded me that dignity doesn't retire." Another woman writes, "My father cried reading your story. He said he felt seen for the first time in years. I read them all one by one and realized something humbling: my story isn't unique. It's just the echo of 1,000 quiet humiliations that people carry in silence. Maybe that's why it touched a nerve, because it wasn't about revenge, but recognition. People still debate whether one act can ripple far enough to matter. I didn't think mine would, but now every letter on my table says otherwise. A few days later, I get another letter from Daniel Brooks again. This one is shorter. He thanks me for replying to his first letter, says he's taken my advice to heart. I've started volunteering at a senior center on weekends, he writes. I realized how much wisdom I've ignored around me. Thank you for holding up the mirror. I smile faintly. Maybe guilt, when handled right, can become gratitude. That weekend, I take the bus downtown to visit the park again. It's filled with families and laughter. I sit under the same oak tree I used to visit with Margaret. The bench creaks a little under my weight, but it's comforting, like an old friend still willing to hold me. Across the pond, I see a young couple arguing quietly about a bill or a phone call. Something small but sharp. It reminds me of my wife and me in our early years, when we thought every disagreement was a crack in the world. Now I know it's just life breathing. A woman in her 70s sits beside me. She's feeding breadcrumbs to pigeons, humming a tune I recognize but can't name. After a few minutes, she turns and says, "You're the man from that newspaper story, aren't you?" I chuckle. Guilty, I suppose. She smiles kindly. Good for you. People forget that we've lived through things most of them can't even imagine. We deserve better than polite dismissal. I nod. Sometimes the best way to remind them is to stay calm while they lose control. We talk for nearly an hour about life, aging, loneliness, and the strange freedom that comes with no longer caring what others think. Before she leaves, she pats my hand and says, "You made us proud." Her words linger long after she's gone. People still debate whether the world changes one protest at a time or one quiet moment at a time. Maybe both are true. Some battles are won with noise, others with silence so firm it can't be ignored. When I get home, I notice something on my doorstep, a letter with no return address. Inside is a single line written in hurried script: "Thank you for being patient with me when I didn't deserve it." It's signed simply, Daniel. I fold it carefully and place it with the others right beside Margaret's ring. Forgiveness has a strange way of closing circles you never thought needed closing. That night, as I watch the sun set from my porch, the light spills through the trees like liquid gold. The world hums quietly, the distant bark of a dog, the soft clatter of a neighbor's dinner plates, the rustle of leaves in the wind. I realize I don't feel angry or triumphant or sad. I just feel human again. People still debate whether justice has to be loud to be real, but I think the truest justice is peace, the kind that settles into your bones after you've done the right thing without needing applause. The next day, I open my journal again and write one final note under yesterday's entry: "Power isn't in having money. It's in choosing not to let money define how you see others. True wealth is restraint." Then I close the journal, pour myself a cup of tea, and whisper softly to the empty room. "We did all right, Margaret. We really did." A few months pass, and life settles into something gentle again, like the calm ripples after a storm has long disappeared from the horizon. My days are filled with small rituals that anchor me: watering the plants Margaret once loved, feeding the neighbor's cat that insists on sleeping on my porch, and reading the morning paper with a careful patience that younger people would find unbearable. Sometimes I even visit Harborview Bank just to chat with the staff, who now greet me like an old friend instead of a transaction. I don't need much these days, just kindness, conversation, and coffee that doesn't taste like cardboard. One Thursday afternoon, as I'm sitting by the window with a crossword, my phone buzzes. The name on the screen surprises me. Daniel Brooks. For a moment, I hesitate. Then I answer. "Mr. Hayes," he says, his voice steady but softer than I remember. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all," I reply. "What can I do for you?" He pauses. "I wanted to tell you something. I've resigned from First City Bank." I lean back in my chair, letting the silence hang. "That must have been a big decision," I say finally. "It was," he admits. "After the audit, I was offered another position, same pay, fewer responsibilities, but I realized I couldn't stay. Every corner of that place reminded me of how blind I'd been. So I left. I've started consulting for a nonprofit that teaches financial literacy to seniors. It's strange going from suits and meetings to community halls and coffee-stained tables, but it feels right. I smile to myself. "That sounds like redemption," I say. He chuckles softly. "Maybe it is. I just wanted to thank you again. You didn't humiliate me. You let me see myself. Most people would have yelled written complaints or gone public. You just stayed quiet. That silence hit harder than anything. People still debate whether silence is strength or surrender. But I've always believed it's strategy, the kind that reveals character in both directions. I'm glad you learned something, I tell him. That's worth more than any apology. We talk a little longer about how he's helping retirees protect their savings from scams, how he's discovered a sense of purpose he didn't know he needed. When he hangs up, I feel something warm spread through my chest. Forgiveness, when it's genuine, doesn't just free the other person, it frees you too. That evening, I sit on the porch with a book I've read a dozen times. The sky bleeds into soft pinks and oranges. The neighborhood kids are riding bicycles, their laughter echoing like wind chimes. I can't help but think about the strange ways life teaches us humility, how sometimes the greatest lessons come from the smallest wounds. People still debate whether dignity is something you're born with or something you build. I think it's built brick by brick, moment by moment, every time you choose patience over pride. A week later, an envelope arrives in my mailbox, stamped with the seal of Harborview Bank. Inside is an invitation. You are cordially invited to attend our annual Community Appreciation Luncheon, honoring clients who have made a positive social impact. My name is printed in bold below. I laugh out loud, half disbelief, half amusement. Me, a symbol of social impact. Margaret would have teased me mercilessly. The event is held at the town hall, all white linens and polite chatter. When I arrive, the bank's director greets me with a warm handshake. "Mr. Hayes," he says, "it's an honor. Your story reminded us why we do what we do." He leads me to a seat near the stage. I notice familiar faces, local business owners, teachers, even a few retirees like me. Everyone looks genuinely happy to be there, which already makes it different from the stiff banquets I used to attend in my working years. Midway through the lunch, the director takes the microphone. "We're here to celebrate integrity," he says. "And tonight, we'd like to recognize someone whose quiet example reminded an entire industry that respect is the foundation of trust." I feel the spotlight shift literally and figuratively. Please join me in honoring Mr. Richard Hayes. For a second, I freeze. Applause fills the room. People turn toward me, smiling, clapping not out of pity, but recognition. I stand slowly, my knees protesting, and make my way to the podium. The director hands me a small plaque, engraved with the words, "For restoring faith in simple decency." I stare at it for a moment, then look up at the audience. I don't know about faith, I say, my voice steady but low. But I do know decency isn't complicated. It's just rare. A few chuckles ripple through the crowd. I continue. We live in a world that values speed over sincerity, numbers over names. But let me tell you, people remember how you treat them long after they forget how much money they had. Respect doesn't cost a dime, but its absence can bankrupt your soul. The room goes quiet, that kind of silence that means people are actually listening. I finish simply, be kind when it's hardest. That's when it matters most. The applause that follows isn't loud. It's warm, sustained, genuine. I step down, shaking hands, smiling politely. I don't feel pride. I feel something gentler, peace. The kind that comes when life circles back to show you that doing the right thing really was enough. People still debate whether kindness ever wins in the long run. I used to wonder too. But standing there surrounded by strangers who felt like friends, I realized kindness doesn't need to win. It just needs to endure. After the event, as I step outside into the late afternoon sun, I see Daniel Brooks waiting near the steps. He's dressed casually, holding a notebook. When our eyes meet, he smiles, not the nervous, polite smile of a banker, but the relaxed, honest smile of someone who's finally comfortable with himself. "Congratulations, Mr. Hayes," he says quietly. "Thank you, Daniel," I reply. "You look lighter." "I am," he admits. "I owe that to you." I shake my head. "No, son. You owe that to your own courage. I just held up a mirror, you decided to clean it." He laughs, softly, nodding. "Fair enough." He hands me a small envelope. It's a donation receipt. We started a new program for seniors in financial distress. I named it the Hayes Initiative. Thought you should know. For the first time in a long while, I feel tears sting the corners of my eyes. I grip his shoulder, unable to speak for a moment. Finally, I manage, "You did good, Daniel. Real good." He smiles again, then walks away into the glowing sunset, blending into the crowd. I stand there for a long while, watching until he disappears from sight. The breeze picks up, carrying with it the faint scent of lilacs from a nearby garden. The world feels balanced again. Not perfect, not just, but fair enough for one lifetime. I close my eyes, whisper a quiet, "Thank you," and let the wind carry it wherever it wants to go. In the weeks that follow, I find myself thinking less about the bank and more about the strange ways life restores balance when you least expect it. The phone rings occasionally, reporters, curious strangers, even people who just want to thank me for standing up for the elderly. I always tell them the same thing: I didn't stand up for anyone. I just refused to sit down when someone tried to make me feel small. It's funny how people romanticize simple decency when all it really is the absence of cruelty. But beneath all the attention, my life returns to quiet rhythms. I read, I garden, I take slow walks past the bakery where the smell of bread still reminds me of Margaret. And though the world outside feels faster than ever, I've learned to exist in my own pace, measured, deliberate, grateful. One afternoon, while trimming the hedges, I hear footsteps approaching. It's Leo from Harborview Bank, the young advisor who handled my transfer. He looks slightly out of breath, but smiling. "Mr. Hayes," he says, shaking my hand. "I wanted to stop by personally. We received confirmation this morning. The Hayes Initiative has officially been recognized as a community partnership. We'll be sponsoring it annually from now on." I blink, surprised. "That's Daniel's project," I say. He nods. "Yes, but he credited you as its inspiration. He said you taught him more about humanity in one afternoon than the banking industry did in 20 years. I can't help but laugh softly. Well, I suppose that's one investment that finally paid off. Leo chuckles with me. He's been working hard, you know. The program helps retirees understand how to protect their savings from fraud. He visits community centers, nursing homes, even churches. It's making a difference. People still debate whether one person can change anything. But change rarely comes from noise. It comes from example. A ripple, not a wave. Before he leaves, Leo hands me a folder. A few updates from your account, sir, routine reports. But also an invitation. I open it. It's from Daniel again. We're hosting our first free seminar next week for seniors. Would you consider attending as a guest speaker? I stare at the invitation for a long moment. I've never been much of a speaker. My words have always lived quietly written in notebooks, whispered in empty kitchens, shared with one woman who understood me better than anyone else ever could. But maybe it's time to speak again. The following Wednesday, I take the bus downtown to the community hall. It's an old brick building that smells faintly of dust and paper, but the chairs are full. Dozens of gray heads, wrinkled hands, and warm eyes. Daniel stands at the front, no suit this time, just a light sweater and rolled-up sleeves. When he sees me, his face lights up. "Ladies and gentlemen," he says, into the microphone, "today I want to introduce someone who doesn't like attention, but deserves it anyway. Mr. Richard Hayes, the reason this program exists." Applause fills the room, not loud, but sincere. I walk to the front, slowly nodding in thanks. When I reach the podium, I rest my hands on it, steadying myself. "Thank you, Daniel," I begin. "But you give me too much credit. All I did was have a bad day at the bank." The audience laughs softly. But maybe that day was worth it because it reminded me, and maybe some of you, that we don't lose our worth when we get old. We just lose the world's patience. And sometimes that's not our problem, it's theirs. The laughter turns to murmurs of agreement. I continue. People still debate whether aging is decline or evolution. I like to think it's the latter. We don't get slower, we get quieter. And in a world that's too loud, that might be the strongest thing we can be. I look at Daniel as I speak. His eyes shine not with guilt anymore, but with pride. That's how I know the story has come full circle. After the seminar, several attendees come up to thank me. One woman tells me her husband was scammed by an online investor and lost half his retirement savings. If only we'd known earlier, she says, maybe we could have stopped it. I squeeze her hand gently. Now you do, I tell her, and you'll stop someone else from going through the same thing. People still debate whether pain teaches or punishes. I think it does both, but teaching lasts longer. That evening, as the hall empties, Daniel and I sit by the back door watching the sunset bleed through the dusty windows. "You did great," he says quietly. "I just spoke the truth," I reply. "That's easy when you've lived long enough to stop pretending." He smiles. "You know, when I first saw you at that bank, I thought you were just another impatient customer. And I thought you were just another arrogant banker," I say with a grin. Seems we both were half right. We laugh together, and for a moment the difference in our ages disappears. We're just two men who learned something the hard way. As we part, Daniel says, "You were the first person to ever make me see what integrity looks like. I'll spend the rest of my career trying to honor that." I wave him off. "Don't honor me, just remember me when someone older walks in looking tired. Give them the dignity they've earned, not the pity they didn't ask for." That night back home, I sit again in my old rocking chair. The window is open, and the breeze carries the faint smell of rain. I think of Margaret. I imagine her laughing softly, her voice saying, "You always knew how to teach without preaching." I whisper, "Maybe I learned it from you." The moonlight drifts across the floor, slow and silver. My heart feels full, not from pride, but from quiet gratitude. The world doesn't often give second chances, but sometimes it surprises you with redemption in the form of someone else's growth. People still debate whether legacies are written in wealth or in the lives we touch. I think mine might just be in a small community program named after me, a ripple that will outlive my name. As I close my eyes, I hear the faint echo of Daniel's laughter from earlier, and it blends with Margaret's in my memory. Two sounds of change, one past one present woven together by time. And I smile, knowing the world is just a little kinder than it was when this all began. The seasons shift again before I realize it. Autumn creeps into the trees, turning every leaf into a fragile flame. The mornings are colder now. I have to wrap Margaret's old shawl around my shoulders when I sit by the window. I've never minded the cold. It keeps the world quiet, slows the noise to something I can think through. From this spot, I can see the park bench across the street where I often sit with my thermos of coffee. Lately, people have begun to join me there. Strangers at first, then familiar faces from the seminars. Retirees who stop by to talk about anything but money. Sometimes the conversations drift to childhood regrets and little moments of grace that made us who we are. They tell me stories I've heard versions of all my life, sons too busy to visit daughters, caught up in careers, the loneliness that settles in the corners of empty houses. Yet there's laughter too, the kind that comes from people who have lived long enough to understand that pain in time becomes a kind of beauty. People still debate whether aging is loss or gain. I think it's both. It's losing what no longer fits and gaining what finally matters. One morning as I'm packing up to leave the park, a young man in a Harborview badge approaches. "Mr. Hayes," he asks, "we're filming a short community video about the Hayes Initiative. Would you mind saying a few words on camera? Nothing fancy. Just your thoughts." I hesitate. I've spent my whole life avoiding cameras. But then I think of Margaret, who used to insist stories die when they stay quiet. So I agree. They set up the camera in the park, the wind playing softly with the fallen leaves. I speak slowly from the heart. Money doesn't make you valuable, I say. Respect does. And respect doesn't come from what you have. It comes from how you treat people when no one's watching. They thank me, and I think nothing more of it. But a week later, I'm in the grocery store when a young cashier recognizes me. "You're that man from the video, right?" she says. Eyes bright. My grandpa watched it 3 times. He said it made him feel proud to be old again. I don't know what to say. For once in my life, I'm speechless. I nod and smile, pretending to check my change so she doesn't see the tears that suddenly well up. At home, I pour myself a glass of water and sit down, the echo of her words still ringing in my mind, proud to be old again. That night, I can't sleep. I keep thinking of all the people who walk through life invisible. People who worked, built, raised, sacrificed, and were forgotten the moment they slowed down. Maybe that's what this story was always about. Not me, not the bank, not even Daniel. It was about being seen again, even for a moment. A few days later, Daniel visits. He's different now, lighter, with laugh lines starting to form, where once there was only tension. He hands me a small notebook. These are the first testimonials from people who attended the program, he says. Letters from folks who learned how to manage their accounts, spot scams, or just feel confident walking into a bank again. I thought you'd like to read them. I flip through the pages. Each letter feels like a heartbeat, grateful, hopeful, alive. One woman writes, "I used to dread going to the bank. Now I walk in with my head high." Another says, "I was ready to give up on people until I met your volunteers." Daniel sits quietly as I read. When I close the notebook, I look at him and say, "You've done something good here, something real." He nods. We both did, Mr. Hayes. You started the ripple. We talk until sunset, our voices fading into the amber light. When he leaves, I stand at the doorway watching him go, just as I once watched him leave the bank, except this time he's walking taller. People still debate whether we ever get to see the results of our good deeds. I think sometimes life lets us catch a glimpse just enough to remind us it was all worth it. Weeks pass. Winter arrives quietly draping the town in silver frost. I spend the holidays with my daughter and grandson, who insist I stay longer this year. The boy asks me about the bank story. I tell him the simple version: a man forgot his manners, so life reminded him. He laughs, then says, "Grandpa, when I grow up, I want to own a bank and be nice to everyone." I grin. If you do that, the world will be just fine. When I return home after New Year's, I find a letter waiting for me on the kitchen counter, forwarded from Harborview. It's from Daniel again, written in his now familiar, careful handwriting. Mr. Hayes, I wanted you to know that the Hayes Initiative has reached over 3,000 seniors this quarter. We've expanded to 3 new cities. Every seminar starts with your story, not about wealth, but about worth. Thank you for being the kind of man who teaches without preaching and forgives without forgetting. Yours sincerely, Daniel Brooks. I fold the letter, my throat tightening. I place it in the same wooden box where Margaret's ring rests alongside all the other letters. The box is nearly full now, but my heart feels even fuller. People still debate whether life gives closure. I think it gives echoes, soft reminders that we mattered even in small ways. That evening I sit by the window once more, shawl over my shoulders, mug of tea steaming beside me. The world outside glows under the streetlights. Somewhere in the distance, church bells ring their sound floating through the cold air. I whisper, "You were right, Margaret. Kindness outlasts everything." For a while I just sit there breathing in the quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. I close my eyes not in sadness but in peace. Maybe this is what legacy feels like, not grand or loud, but calm and steady, like the heartbeat of a life well lived. And as the night settles in, I think to myself, perhaps the greatest fortune a man can hold isn't in a bank account at all. It's in the moments when he chooses dignity over pride, compassion over contempt, and silence over rage. Because people may forget your name, they may even forget your story, but they will always remember how you made them feel. The years drift quietly after that, like pages turning in a book whose story has already been told, but still lingers in the reader's mind. I grow older, slower a little, more transparent to the world, but not invisible anymore. Sometimes when I walk through town, someone will stop me just to shake my hand and say, "You're the man from the bank story." I always smile and say, "That was a long time ago," but they never believe me. Maybe stories once spoken with truth refuse to age. The Hayes Initiative continues to thrive without me. Daniel sends updates now and then, photos of seminars, smiling faces, handwritten thank you notes from people I'll never meet. Each one feels like a whisper from Margaret, reminding me that kindness isn't a moment, it's a seed. You plant it once, and the roots keep growing long after you're gone. In the evenings, I still sit on my porch as the sun goes down, watching the sky melt from gold to gray. The wind hums through the trees, carrying bits of laughter, the bark of a distant dog, the hum of a living world that keeps turning whether we notice or not. And I think maybe that's enough, to have lived, to have learned, to have left behind something gentler than what you found. People still debate what defines success: money, fame, legacy. For me, it's simpler. Success is leaving every place you touch a little kinder than it was before. So, if you've listened to my story this far, thank you for sharing this quiet journey with me. Now turn off the lights, maybe keep the fan humming for comfort, and let the night take over. Sleep well, my friends, and be kind even when no one's watching.